Right now at Git Commit Show, we have our next speaker connecting from Sweden. He is author of cURL. If you are a developer, cURL doesn't need any introduction. I have been using it since I started programming, and I used to wonder who are these people who write such wonderful software, which we use on day-to-day basis, which helps us in being more productive, and a very important part of our complete technical stack to get our things done. So today we have Daniel Stenberg. He is author of cURL, as you know, and he started his programming in 1985, and he wrote cURL in 98. That's a long time back. I was born in 91, and that seems like whole my life since I born. He was programming already since then. So I am so excited to have him here, and a huge warm welcome to Daniel. He will take us on a journey of how he started cURL and how it got so popular, how it got so most widely used software in technical industry. So over to Daniel.
Hi, thank you. So I'm Daniel Stenberg. I'm sitting here in my home in just outside Stockholm, Sweden. It's a lovely Saturday morning here, and let me tell you a little bit about the project I've been working on quite a lot called cURL. So here it is. And you know what cURL is, and I know what cURL is, but let me just preface everything with saying that I'm nowadays working for Wolf SSL, and I do cURL development full time. So cURL is really the project I'm most known for, and the project I've been working on the most, I would say, since I got into open source a long time ago. So cURL is what I try to say. It's to explain the short version of what cURL is that it's basically an open source project that makes a command line tool and a library, and we transfer internet protocols. Usually I also add that we specify the transfers with URLs. So that's where the name comes from, client for URLs, really, cURL. And this is how you use it, the command line tool. It supports a lot of protocols. You write curl and the URL, and it gets it transferred. And of course, you can do a lot more than just get the transferred protocol down to your computer. You can fiddle with it in many sorts of ways. And this is how you do it. If you want to write a program that uses libcurl, this is, I would say the most basic libcurl program you can write. This just transfers a HTTPS URL down to your, actually, this writes it to the screen. So maybe not the most practical one, but a small one. It just shows this is what curl and libcurl is. So, of course, this started out as something, like all projects, there was actually nothing from the beginning. And in the beginning, then, when I started working on this project, it actually started out that I was working on I was doing I think it was my first real open source participation. I was doing an IRC bot back in the days. So that's a little bot that joins in a chat room, and we added services to the little bot. And one of these days, I wanted to add a currency translation service to the bot, so that we could ask the bot, please translate $100 US to Swedish crowns. And it would tell you how much that would be with a reasonably accurate currency rate. So, but how do you get a currency rate to the bot? Well, I needed a little tool for the bot to download currency rates, like, say, every night or twice a day or something. So I needed a little tool to transfer HTTP data, because I found currency rates on an HTTP site. And I didn't really find any tool that I liked, and it was small enough and just simple enough to use. So back in that day, that was late 1996. I found a tool called HTTP GET that was a few hundred lines of code. I liked it. I started using it. It wasn't really doing everything I needed, so I started working on enhancing it. And soon I was maintainer of it, and I added more protocols, and the film Independence Day came out around that time, just to give you a historic perspective. And then I worked on adding more protocols because I found currency rates and other protocols too. Soon I also added upload capabilities for FTP. I actually added both Gopher and FTP. And when I added FTP upload capabilities, we changed the name of the project because it had already changed name once by then, and it became cURL, and I released the first cURL version in March 1998. And what's funny is that 1998 is also the year when the term open source was coined, right? The invention of the term open source was just, I think, the month before we released cURL, the first cURL version. So it was, open source was new. Netscape had just recently announced their plans to make their browser open source. You know, this was time there was no Mozilla, there was no Google, there was no a lot of things that we have today. They didn't exist back then. But we had a lot of open source, and I can't say that cURL took off immediately, because it didn't. cURL, the first version of cURL was, I think, around 2,000 lines of code. And sure, I shipped it, and we started fiddling. I got pretty soon I got help from others, and we started to iterating and doing new releases and everything. And this little slide shows a little bit how the number of lines of code have developed in the project. This actually, the lower green line here is the one showing number of lines of code, and the red line is all the other stuff in the cURL repository, tests, documentation, and everything. So it has been growing steadily since the beginning of time. The graph doesn't show from the beginning, because I don't have all the data left since the very beginning. But still, it shows a steady growth. Maybe it has leveled out a little bit recently, but it keeps growing and growing and growing over time. And we have a lot of help from a lot of people over time. I started a project. I'm still the lead developer. I still do most of the commits and changes and everything, but I get a lot of help from a lot of contributors and helpers everywhere. And this graph is actually is not the most updated graph, but you can see from 2005 to 2018 number of contributors in the project. These are people that have helped out, and not only writing code, but also, you know, suggestions, pointing out problems, reporting bugs, and everything, writing docs. So these are everyone who help out, and I make an effort to try to thank and keep a record of everyone who helps out. So as you can see, maybe a few hundred people each year are added to this list of contributors, so it keeps growing. It's actually closing into 2,000 right now, the most updated numbers. And I also find it fascinating that the line is such a straight one. It seems to be pretty constantly adding the same number of people over time, which is I don't know why, but it's curious. And another fun growth curve to watch is the number of command line options for the tool, because the tool already from the beginning became a little, well, sort of Swiss Army knife of internet tools. So it has a lot of command line options to alter behavior, to switch on, switch off features and things. So, and we've been adding a lot of command line options. And as you can see here, the graph back in 2004, it was less than 100 options. And now 2019, in the summertime here, we have, I think it's 221 command line options this very moment. And we're adding them at a pace of, I think, 5 to 7 per year on average, the last 10 years or so. So I think we can say that it's likely that we will add more command line options going forward as well. So today then, going from 1998 with those 3 protocols, basic tool, We then we made it a library in 2000, and we've been adding a lot of protocols and a lot of features to these projects since then. So nowadays we boast, if you count the protocols here on the upper line, I think it's 23 protocols if you count them like that, and we have so many individual specific features within the protocol. So a lot of things. So all those contributors and everyone has helped out adding all these and polishing these and reporting bugs about these, and have helped them become good and working like they are today. Yeah, so this has really made curl into this, well, quote unquote, Swiss Army knife for internet transfer things. In particular, of course, people know and use it with HTTP and HTTPS, and those are truly the protocols that people use curl with, and they associate curl with. Some of the companies that are doing commercial things using curl or libcurl, and I don't intend anyone to actually read this list. I just want to show you this wall of names, because nowadays, of course, curl is used by everyone. This list is even pretty old by now. And even if you just look at some of the most known and familiar big brand names in the world, you can see that a lot of familiar names, of course, use curl. Nowadays, people tend to ask me, well, who don't use curl? You don't have to mention people or companies that use it, since everyone uses it. And just for fun, I had this little top 10 curl users list in the world. And that is interesting, because doing something like this open source, and I do it with an MIT license, usually these users, they don't tell me when they end up using curl for their product. They just get curl and they put it in their product or service or whatever, and they ship it, and they're ideally they're happy with it and go with it, and their products are used by millions or billions of people, and yeah, everything is fine, but they don't tell me about it. So eventually I have stumbled on someone telling me that they found curl in the credit screen or about screen or whatever, or someone has a problem with the product and they've asked me about it, and it turns out that they actually use curl for the product. So I often then, like in this case of this slide, you can see it here in the down right corner here is a kitchen. It's a machine for the kitchen. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's some sort of blender thing, but it runs curl on that little screen, it says so. So among the top 10 users in the world is really, there are around 50 million Linux servers in the world, and very few servers that are actually not using curl. And this little quote from Facebook is fun, but they tried my patch in production, which is fun for such a huge site trying patches in production. That was a long time ago. I bet they do it differently these times. But Facebook is still a very, very big curl user of their site, possibly the one who's doing the biggest volume of curl requests per second, a very big number of curl requests per second from Facebook. Sony PlayStation 4 uses curl in the OS level, so I think a lot of games then and everything on PS4 uses it. Netflix embedded devices use curl. I think there are more than 100 million installations, so a lot of curl there. Grand Theft Auto 5, a very popular game, uses curl. They claim 110 million installations. And this little screenshot here is actually the ending sequence but it says it uses libcurl, which I remember my kids got a little impressed when suddenly Dad could show off that he actually is making games. And another fun part with this ending sequence is that this screenshot I took here, it comes from a video of the ending sequence, because the ending sequence is over 40 minutes long, and this is like 42 minutes into it. So I would say very few people have actually seen it. Somewhere around 120 million cars run curl in them. 8 of the top 10 brands. And so, yeah, I've found curl references in manuals and documentation and screens for at least 22 car brands. So very popular in modern cars. There are some 200 million Mac OS machines, and curl is part of Mac OS. since 2001. It's bundled in every one of them. Yeah, Fortnite uses libcurl, and there are a lot of Fortnite installations. Television sets, basically, there's somewhere around 400 million TVs in the world that are internet connected and are using curl in them. And of course, Windows 10 shipped curl as part of it since the version 1803, which was released around that time. That means around March last year. So 1 billion installations, maybe. And of course, mobile phones, which by volume then becomes the devices with the most number of curl installations, because there is a curl installation in virtually every mobile phone in the world, and I should say every smartphone, at least when it comes to Android and iOS. It's part of iOS. It ships by the OS, and it is being used by some of the most frequently installed applications like YouTube, Instagram, Skype, Spotify. So it is, I think it's a fair assessment to say that almost every smartphone in the world is using curl. So it's just a lot of curl everywhere. So we went from that little thing we did back in the late 90s into 21 years later, and it is used in, we estimate, somewhere around 6 billion installations. So, right, some other fun curl sightings. This is a billboard. The left one is a billboard outside in Silicon Valley, actually. And the right one is the NASDAQ building in New York, showing a curl command line. Just fun details. And doing curl at this this volume, this level of success, it makes it show up everywhere, as I mentioned before. And as I also showed you some screenshots, my name and the license appears in a lot of places. And when my email is part of the curl license that shows up in a lot of places, people tend to contact me about problems they have with products where they can find my name, even though I, of course, have nothing to do with the product. And I'm just showing off a little fun email I got about someone having some sort of device here in a car, presumably using curl and having problem to use the GPS. So I get some of these, and I think it's actually it's fun for me. As of course it's sad for the people who experience these problems, but an interesting side effect of having your email in many places. So why are people using curl? Why are all these companies using curl in all of these devices and products and everywhere? Yeah. There are a lot of reasons, of course. So the internet doesn't really follow specs very good. So if you want to do a client that speaks these protocols with a lot of service on the internet, you need to give it time. You need time to polish off all the rough edges and adapt to every quirkiness that is out there, and it takes time. And curl now has been that battle tested, been tried through the years, and sort of we've been fixing all those problems over time. So it's fairly reliable now. We know how to speak these protocols, and the code itself is also stable now. And of course, it is open source and MIT licensed, so companies are free to use this code in basically whichever way they want without feeling scared of the open source or the license. It is libcurl itself provides a simple, stable, and powerful API. Some people have some problem. Of course, will say that the API is a little bit awkward and quirky, but it's still there and it's stable. Actually, the first examples we wrote for libcurl back in 2000 can still be used today with the latest libcurl. 19 years later for the same library. So we know how to do stable APIs, and we also have a very stable ABI. So you can upgrade safely with curl. One of the primary reasons people like curl is also that it's multi-platform and it works the same way on all platforms. So if you switch between platforms, you write your application to work on Mac, Windows, Linux, Android, iOS, or whatever, you can write it to work the same way, and libcurl is there on all of them, and it'll help doing internet transfers on all of them. And one of the benefits of having open source and a stable API is that the documentation can pretty much remain and just get improved over time. We just iterate on it. We don't have to since we basically have the same way of working and the same API ever since the beginning. It makes it pretty good over time. So pretty complete and a good volume and a lot of examples and everything. And the internet is nowadays full of examples and people helping out each other with doing things, both using curl as a command line and libcurl with API. So yeah, and sure, and it's we have a lot of protocols. People like that they can actually use curl to do several protocols when they need more protocol needs. It is, I mean, it's written in C. It just does what it should do, so it's reasonably fast. You can you can shave the footprint, as I say here. That means that you can actually, when you build your own libcurl, you can pretty much customize it. You can switch off a lot of features that you don't need, so you can make it smaller. And of course, it supports a lot of different TLS backends, so you can also build it with your particular TLS desire. So if you want to use a particular TLS library, you just build your version of curl with your TLS or with your features, and that's usually how all these embedded users use curl. They build their own curl with their own particular needs, and they're happy with that. And of course, it is open source, and there was never any alternative for me to do it in any other way, because open source is the natural way to do something, and it would never have been even close to this if I hadn't done it open source. And no, I wouldn't be rich otherwise anyway, because it would never have succeeded. I would have failed immediately, and nobody would ever have used it, and someone else would have done a curl-like instead. So open source was natural, and the only way that curl would ever have been able to reach this success is by doing it open source. So how do we do this? How do we develop from that little thing up to this big thing and into what everyone is using? So we have, as I said, we have almost 2,000 contributors by this time. We have around 40 to 50 people who actually help out per release. We do releases on every 8 weeks when things go as planned. So we have, yeah, you can see 40-50 people per release, that is per 8 weeks. So a lot of people come and go. I would say for every release, about half of these are first timers. So somewhere around 20-25 people are doing their first contributions to curl in every release we do. So a lot of new people too. So yeah, many people. And we're increasing slowly over time. I mean, more and more contributors, and we're getting more and more people involved per release over time. We're actually a very small core team, so we're usually around 10 people that stick around for that have been around for the last few years, and we're all volunteers, apart from me, since I'm now working full-time on curl. In curl, we do everything in public, so we do everything on mailing lists that are public, and we do everything in public repositories, and we do chatting on IRC. So everything is public. Well, apart from perhaps a short period of time when we do security handling we keep hidden until we publish them. But we are an old-time open source project. We do a lot of mailing lists, even if these days, since about, I think soon 10 years, we're on GitHub, do everything with Git, and we have, of course, we're using issues, and we use pull requests and everything. So if you find your spelling error in the documentation in curl, you just clone the repo on GitHub, you fix the little thing, and you push a pull request. And we have a very low we don't have any complicated procedures to follow. You just have to provide if you give us your help, we will make sure that it follows the right style and everything, and we can merge it. So usually if you just have followed the project and just see how others are doing it, you can get merged pretty soon if the pull request is simple. Of course, a more complicated bug fix can of course take more time, because it might be more complicated. And we have a lot of CI tests and builds and everything that makes sure that pull requests and pushes are of decent quality before we merge them. So that could also sometimes be a little bit tricky because they build on a lot of different platforms and a lot of different build combinations that maybe every single contributor doesn't do. So, but sure, it's a friendly small community and it works really good. So usually we're all volunteers here. Well, again, apart from me. So we're all spare time hackers. A lot of people pay their employees to fix curl or their curl issues every once in a while. So sometimes companies have paid contributors to do feature development and so on, but usually we're just people doing it in their spare time because we want to. So I am the lead developer of this, and I've been that since, as I mentioned before, I created it and released it in 1998. And of course, if you have done this, spent a lot of time on the project, this says Mozilla in the background too, which is an old slide. It's interesting. Okay, well, I was just going to say that if you spend, like me, I spend roughly 2 hours per day on curl on my spare time. So, and if you then extend that to 2 hours per day in 21 years, that's a lot of time. And then, of course, that has made it possible for me to do a lot of commits and spend a lot of time on curl to do. And that, of course, is this foundation to what curl is today. A lot of time, effort, and patience. You just keep on polishing, keep on iterating, and fix the bugs. Do it again, and over time, if you just have the patience, it can actually become something that works and is good. But also maintaining and doing, developing a project like this is much more than just writing code, right? And doing the commits, because there are more like having to do with security issues and actually handle the release management, update the website, take care of the mailing list and review other people's codes and comment and help others and try to mentor them and how to do things the way we want them to do. Follow the code style, follow the commit message style. User support people are having problem with curl, with libcurl, how to use it, how not to use it. And of course, I also try to blog about curl in the project and what we're doing, what's happening. So, and then of course, debug problems and merge the patches when people provide them. And so, and finally, at the lower right there, of course, doing talks like this, because information and telling people about it is also important. But all of this, of course, every little piece here and all these, what is it, 14 different areas, all of these, of course, take time and effort. And it's a lot of work to maintain a project and make it work. But, of course, it's a lot of fun. I do this for the fun of it. So a lot of people ask me why I do it and how come I never get tired of it. I've been doing this for 21 years. How long am I going to keep on doing it? But sure, it is the most fun I can imagine, and I don't have any plans. I haven't grown tired of it yet. I still work on it every day. Actually, I work on it more now every day than I have ever before. So yeah, this is truly the passion of my life. And I don't know, at some point in life, I guess it might change, but not right now. And if you do it like this, you can actually get a gold medal. This is a picture from an award I got from, I got it handed from the Swedish king 2 years ago. It's called the Poland Prize, which I got for all the years I've spent on curl and made curl into what it is. Just a fun little thing that sometimes 20 years of efforts can actually get noticed by someone and you might get an award. And what about the future? No, people ask me, well, isn't it ever done? Aren't you never isn't it complete? What else can you do? And a lot of people also tend to tell me that, well, I tried curl 10 years ago and I tried it now and I don't see any difference. It's the same thing, right? Yeah. That's what we want it to feel like. And no, it truly never gets done because protocols keeps evolving, the internet changes, and well, the open source is there and it's not going to die. So we just keep on fixing it. We add features. Well, not in every release, but surely every other release or even more. So we're adding, and we want to keep up with the browsers and other internet trends. So there are always things to do. And sure, of course, you can help. So whatever you miss and whatever you find in curl that is missing or is broken or is bad or is subpar, you can help out. And everyone who is participating and helping out, make sure that this just keeps on going. We fix things, we add things, we release, and we keep on going. So this is the roadmap of stuff. And so basically what we do, we add stuff over time to curl. We never ever have a really set roadmap other than this, because we're so few people who actually commit dedicated time. So we have some things we want to do in short term, but otherwise we just go by the ear, sort of let everyone contribute what they want, and we merge them over time. And so it's fun. Join us. I have written this book. It's available as an ebook and PDF and online, called Everything Curl. It's totally free. Go to that URL in the bottom here and you can find out about it. You can actually also buy a printed version if you really want to have it on dead trees, but I would suggest just reading it online. Then you get all the updates fine. So that's what I wanted to say about curl in 30 minutes in a very condensed way. So thank you. And I do want your questions. So feel free to shoot me your questions, and I will certainly try to answer them. I know a little bit about curl.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Daniel, for this wonderful talk and fun talk as well. And I request audience to ask the questions in chats, and we will get you to ask the questions to Daniel directly. And before that, meanwhile, I have one question myself. So I got from the talk, I got to know about when someone is starting an open source, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of consistent work that you need to do. And it's not just about the code. It's also about the other things that you do, so that other people can contribute and other people get to know about your project.
Right.
So how do you see when you started in 98 and right now someone starting in open source, what are the different challenges, or what are the key things that people need to keep in mind?
Well, first, I just want to say that starting a project now compared to doing it back when I did it, things are very different, I would say, because nowadays it's actually much. I don't want to be that old guy saying things were different back in my days, but it's actually much easier these days. And not in a bad. I mean, it is good because nowadays we have much more infrastructure and people are more aware of open source and so on. So it's easier. We have sites and things you can start up easy. You don't have to do a lot of. You don't have to host your own website. You don't have to host your own source code repositories, and everything is there. So it's easy to get started. And I don't actually mean to imply that you have to do all of those things already from the beginning, right? So if you want to start an open source today and you have a great idea, you should just get the idea going and get the code there and start working on it. And then all of those other things that you might want to fix, you can add those over time. So of course you can be sort of, you don't have any fancy website, you don't have any blah, 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 and you just, well, add that over time. If people are interested, you can start adding that too. So I would say start small. Start with the little things that are fun and make sure that it actually works. Maybe find some users, get some friends to try it out. And if they like it, you can cooperate. And so sort of build it up over time. Because I certainly didn't have all that from the beginning. My project was as any other project from the beginning, very small and nobody knew about it. And I did a lot of mistakes from the beginning, of course. But I think if it's good and if it's open source, you can just iterate on it over time. Have patience, and if it's good enough, it'll work out anyway.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So we have one question lined up. So before that, I have one more question. What is the first challenge that people run into? First big difficult task, like making this open sourcing your project. posting on somewhere. These are easy things right now. But what is the first challenge that someone who is starting an open source project and want to make it big, they run into? What is that?
I think today one of the challenges is that there are so much open source. So, I mean, the whole world is sort of drowning in open source. So, hey, here's another open source project. It's really hard to get through the noise, right? So, if you're just an ordinary guy or girl somewhere, you put out an open source project. How do you get people to find it, use it, and contribute to it when there are so many others that they can find and use instead and contribute to? So I'd say that is really a challenge. And of course, I don't have any magic way to solve that either. I'm in a fortunate position now because more people know about me than before. So if I do something now, I can tell people about it and more people will hear it because I'm now slightly more known than I was back in the days. But I certainly realized that getting through the noise and just make people know about you and your project, that's really difficult today, I would say.
Got it. Awesome. So I'll get one more question here. Just a moment.
First of all, thank you for creating cURL. Internet would have been a very different place without it. Coming to my question, so firstly, like as Pradeep was asking about people getting into open source, what would you recommend for beginners, like if they want to say get involved in development of cURL or any other open source project, or specifically for cURL, like say college students, and how can they come in and contribute to your cURL repository?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think actually in general, I mean, you don't have to. I think cURL is not very special in that regard. I think cURL is more like many other open source projects in that regard. And I think that if you want to contribute to open source in general, I think you should try to find a project that you actually use yourself or care about or find interesting, so that it's fun to work with, not just because you think it sounds cool, but because it's something that actually maybe you want to fix a problem that you actually suffer from yourself, so that you feel that, well, I want to get this done, or even a spelling mistake in the documentation you read, I want to fix this. And then I think you should try to just read up on the well, I would say, if you want to participate in the project more long term than just fix that documentation mistake. If you just want to fix the documentation mistake, you can just go to the GitHub repository, fork it, make a change, and make a pull request. But if you want to make sure that you do it the right way, and if you want to fix problems that are maybe a little bit more complicated or add a feature or something, then I think you should maybe take some time to read up and see how things are done in the project. Maybe check other pull requests, maybe check the mailing list, maybe see how the communication is going in the project. Look at commits, how are they done otherwise in the project, just so that you can get a feel for the culture and sort of adapt to that. See what style of changes they do, how is commits done, and so maybe just hang in the background for a week in the project and see how things are going, and then of course, I think there's nothing wrong by admitting that you're new, or that you want to have help, or that you're not entirely sure exactly how to do things, and just spell it out in your mail or commit message or whatever. And for most projects, at least for cURL, I'd say we would welcome any change, even if it's not entirely correct, and even if it's some mistakes here and there. If someone wants to help out, we also want to help those newcomers and beginners to find their way into do things open source, because as a project, as from cURL's point of view, it's excellent to have a new guy or a girl coming in and say, hey, I want to help out. So that's good for us. So we it's not a bad thing for us to spend a little time to make sure that we help out to educate. Oh, wait a minute, think about this next time, or oh, my advice is to blah blah blah, and we usually do it this way. So I think it's be open about it and just be ready for some back and forth, and I think that's generally quite okay. I think at least, I think that might be harder if you're going to a project with more volume or bigger, more users and more activity, because then it gets so much flowing. But in curl is a fairly small project. So curl is still a small amount of developers and a small amount of things happening. So it's not that hard to so you don't get lost in all the traffic.
Got it. Thanks, Devashish, for the question, and thanks, Daniel, for your answer. So we have some time left. I have more questions, specifically related to web development. You have been teaching people about what's coming in the web and where to go look out for the new information, where to work on. Specifically, as I have seen, HTTP 3 is what's new thing which is coming in, and I have been exploring about it. Would you want to share something related to that so that people can be aware what's going on, what's new, and where to focus on?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So as I mentioned, what's in the future for curl, there's always updates to protocols and new things of doing, new ways of doing things. So now we're looking in the near term future, we will see HTTP 3 come as a standard, and HTTP 3 is built upon Quick instead of TCP. So, and of course, I want to have curl support that. So short term, we want to have add support for Quick and HTTP 3 in curl. So that's a lot of work coming up. I have the foundation started. It's not there at all, but it's yeah, well, I started fiddling with it, and there are more things. So that's an entirely new transport and an entirely new HTTP version. A lot of things to do there, and if you're interested in that kind of thing, you're more than welcome to join us and help out. There are a lot of different libraries and stuff to use for this, so there's a lot of things going on and happening, and many fun things. And there are more things than just HTTP 3 coming out. There's also a pretty strong push for the eSNI thing, which is a way to do encrypted SNI, and now we're talking really specific things, but SNI is the little thing in TLS that tells the server which server you want to talk to, and SNI is typically not encrypted. So if you snoop on someone's network traffic, even with TLS, you can see which host a client wants to connect to, and that's an unfortunate privacy leak. So there's a work now to make sure that you can actually encrypt that part. So that's called eSNI, and that's something we want to support in curl too. There's also work on that coming, and there are things like that. We have more tiny protocol things that we want to fix. There's always the pressure or discussion around supporting SRV records for DNS and things like that. So yeah, if you like internet protocol development, there's a lot of things to still keep on adding to curl.
Got it. And what is your speculation about adoption of HTTP 3? How much time is it going to take to be the majority?
A very long time. So when HTTP 2 came, it took quite a long time until it sort of took off, until and you could even still argue that HTTP 1 is more popular than HTTP 2, because if you look at the top 10 million sites in the world, the majority is actually still not on HTTP 2. But if you're looking at browser traffic, they are now doing more HTTP 2 than HTTP 1. So by volume in HTTP traffic from browsers, HTTP 2 is the bigger one. But HTTP 3 has more challenges than HTTP 2 had. So the adoption rate is certainly going. My prediction is that it's going to be slower than HTTP 2, and HTTP 2 was fairly slow because there are more problems, or sorry, I shouldn't say that. I should say that there are more challenges to overcome with HTTP 3, and the gain going from 2 to 3 is probably smaller than going from 1 to 2. So there's also that maybe it's not big enough gain for a lot of sites to do that, and the shift from TCP to Quick is quite a big shift. So it's going to take it's going to be expensive and painful for a lot of servers to do that switch. So, is it a big enough performance gain for us to actually take that big cost and pain to do the transition? So it'll take a while until people will realize that. And it will also take a while until we get proper server hardware offloading for Quick and everything. So until Quick gets really fast and not as CPU intensive as it is today. So I think, yes, it'll take time. But from my perspective, I want to have curl support it early to make to help all those who adopt servers now, so that so curl can continue being that Swiss Army knife for internet transport. And then of course I think HTTP3 is one key element to in the current internet. We should, to be an HTTP Swiss Army knife, you need HTTP3.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So thanks a lot for coming here. Thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge with us. We will keep following you. We will keep having conversation again, and to know where the web is going, how we can contribute to open source. And there are so many questions that our developer community has in mind which are not answered, and you are the right person to answer those questions, having worked in this field for so many years. So we would love to keep in touch with you. If you have any message for the audience, how they can get in touch with you, or any message that you would want to tell the audience.
Well, to get in touch with me, you can just go to my website at daniel.hacks.se, or you find me on Twitter at Bagder, and you just ask me. So if you want to get help to get into any open source or into curl specifically, just ask me, and I'm sure I will try to help out as the best of my ability.
Awesome. Thanks a lot then. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So Shreya, you can take over from here. And about to the audience, you can submit the feedback. The link is given below. And Shreya will take you ahead of what's there in the program. Before that, I would want to brief you that this first section of this day one is almost over. We will start the next session after a big break. Before that, Shreya would want to talk to you, so be there for a couple of minutes.
As mentioned, you can submit your feedback. The feedback link is given below, and the rewards will be shown after the end of this conference. You can still, if you have any question, you can connect with us on the chat, and we will be back after at 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, we will have a talk of Saurabh Gupta, who will be talking about Dockers and Kubernetes. Then after that, we will have a talk from Mohit Saxena, who is a CTO and ex-CTO and founder of InMobi and founder of Resorty. He is going to deliver a talk how he built a unicorn company. Then after that, we had Keith, who is going to tell us about how he developed a social company who is working for blind and deaf people. So we will get to know a lot more. Till then, stay tuned, and we will have a long break. After that, you can join.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So to all of these next 3 sessions are going to be very informative. You will get to know about new things that are happening in technology, and Docker and Kubernetes that can help you being more productive. And so it covers overall learning for the day. These 3 talks about productivity, about haptic design, about architecture and system design. So these are very useful sessions. I highly recommend you to join that. We have a gap between these sessions, so you can go for a break. Probably it's time for food. So go there, have food, and also we would like to see what are your opinions about this conference, how we can improve it, or anything that you like about this conference. You can tweet us, link is given below. You can give feedback about specific speaker. I really request you to do that so that we can make it better next time. And also there is another, we have another day, day 2, where we will be showcasing technological breakthroughs, and there are very useful talks related to machine learning and a keynote speech. So stay tuned, and you will find all the information on this link. It will be running throughout the this break. So thanks a lot for joining in. We will be back in 1.5 hours. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Gaurav Nimade and I'm a product manager with Google AI. I'm going to be presenting at the Git Commit Online Developer Conference by Invite Labs on June 22nd. I'll be talking about AI for everyday things, and within that I'll primarily cover a brief introduction about AI in ML and why it is super important for everyone, especially the budding developer community. What kind of problems are being solved with AI in our everyday lives, and how will AI change our lives in next 5 to 10 years. So looking forward to the conference.
Hi, my name is Keith Kirkland, and I'm one of the co-founders of WearWorks. And at WearWorks, we build products and experiences that communicate information through touch. I'll be speaking at Invite on June 22nd and June 23rd, and my talk will be about haptic design and the power of using the skin as a communications channel to deliver more contextually and meaningful experiences to users.
Hi everyone, I am Harshita and I'm a young engineer and entrepreneur living in San Francisco. I am delighted to share that I'll be giving a talk on Introduction to Raspberry Pi using Python at the Git Commit Show, which is an online developer conference by Invite Labs, and it's happening on 22nd June to 23rd June weekend. And my talk will be at 12:30 p.m. IST on 22nd June, Saturday. So I look forward to teaching you the basics of Raspberry Pi.
Hi there, I'm Sandeep Giri from CloudX Lab. At CloudX Lab, I have taught about 1,000 engineers from across the world. And before CloudX Lab, I've worked mostly on the high-performance computing and the machine learning at InMobi and Amazon. At Git Commit Show by Invite Labs, I'm going to talk about how to get started with machine learning. This session is going to be very hands-on, so get ready with your laptops and the setup. I'm looking forward to see you all there.
Hey guys, I'm quite excited to be speaking to you all on Git Commit Show by Invite. The topic that I'll be touching on is my personal belief that every startup has a shot to become a unicorn. But that would require certain level of structured thought process. How you pace up your organization, how you set up your engineering, how you set up your system design, architecture, and everything into it, so that you can support every growth at various phases of the company and become the best enabler for your startup. So can't wait to speak to you all and talk to you about what I have learned in my 10 to 11 years journey while building one of the unicorn from this part of the world. Talk to you soon.
Hi guys, I'm going to speak at the Online Developer Conference, Git Commit Show by Invite Labs on 22nd June at 4 p.m. I'm going to be speaking about deploying applications faster with Kubernetes and Docker. So in case you are interested and want to learn more about these technologies, do catch me live on 22nd June at 4 p.m. Thank you. Hope to see you there.